Well, it was when I woke up to screaming in my house and finding out my mother had committed suicide.
Jesus Christ, he really hurt me emotionally and made me question my own self-value.
Probably when I was about 7, when my older brother killed himself, and my mom kind of left me and my little brother to take care of ourselves.
My waifu turned out to be a trap.
Finding out that my friend was actually a terrible person made me think that incest and all those things were good things and that I should indulge in them, but it was actually really toxic and I was still very young and very gullible.
I haven't been on this earth for too long, but I bet it's probably gonna definitely take a turn at some time, because life, it's not nice. You can get through it.
Kind of the worst thing that ever happened, really, like the most trust-breaking thing. I started dating my best friend at the time. He was like a really cool guy and he had my back through everything. And he knew what I was going through at the time. But it just came all of a sudden. Just one day he said, you know what? I'm breaking up with you and I don't want us to speak again ever.
So I'm a very emotionally driven person. So where some people would be sad, I get straight depressed. If some people get happy, I get ecstatic. So you saying something that's completely heartbreaking to me, normal people wouldn't see it that way. They'd see it as everyday life, because I get emotionally attached to people, and because I'm not a very trusting person. And when I get emotionally attached to somebody, it's for a specific reason. Like, I could see myself having a life with that person or being really good friends with them. So if anything happens, it really hits hard.
When me and my ex-girlfriend broke up, about a month later, I regretted my decision about everything. We were together for 3 years, and I've never been with anybody since. But that was the only time in my life that I ever actually considered committing suicide, because I'm usually like kind of a self-motivating person. And it's taken me 3 years since then to actually be able to open up and start talking to people again. And I think it's because I felt more pain in that moment than I ever have physically in my entire life.
Well said, brother, well said.
What's up, brother? It's okay. I'm better now.
I'll smoke to that.
For me, it was my parents divorcing.
My dad dying.
Losing my grandma. That was the worst day of my life. I mean, I hated myself for so long. When I was a kid, I hated her. I mean, I hated going to her house. I was childish. I was stupid, and I hated her, right? But when I got older, more wiser, I start to love her so much.
It's been like 5 years? Yeah, 2020. Even though we moved from my old place, I have new friends and new experiences. And put together, it's like a new adventure. I'm not going to be depressed, because that's not fun.
And that for a while just really messed me up. Like, I was asking myself, like, why? What happened? He just would never give me an answer for like a whole week. Like, what was going on? Throughout the months, we were having a happy relationship, and like, we never had any fight, like ever, like zero fighting. Always, like, we would always joke around. We had so many inside jokes. And he was actually at the time like planning to marry me, which that ended up falling through, you know?
And within this past year, around January of 2019, I had been with this girl for about a year and a half, and she had gotten in a car accident in October, and pretty much everything from the waist down was crushed. And I was there for her the whole time, trying to make sure she was all right, like trying to help her get through it, and everything seemed fine. And then one day, out of nowhere, without even like saying it to my face, she just dumps me. And I had no clue what led up to it, anything like that, and it really, really fucked me up, because that was kind of the only anchor I had at the moment, because I had a lot of personal stuff going on, and she was it, and not having my anchor there, it was just kind of
Someone ride on me. I must change my voice.
When we were apart, the relationship wasn't so good. Mostly my fault. I was very controlling, and yeah, I was just toxic. For a while, I kind of lost all feelings. And then once I let her go, I realized I made a mistake. But she's happy now, so that's all that matters.
How happy on a scale 1 to 10 is she now?
Me? Now, right now, in this very moment in space and time, I am probably a solid 8 or 9. When I realized I'd basically lost everything that I'd been building my life around, I went back and read through all our old messages and everything, and just saw how much of a piece of shit that was?
Probably the most heartbreaking thing that ever encountered me was the death of my dog.
Probably when my dog died a couple years ago. I was kind of like already going through a hard time, and then like my dog, it was kind of the first dog that like I owned, you know. So I was at my parents' house, and it was just like chilling on my bed. I was on my bed, the dog was on my bed, and then my dad came up, and the dog like never liked my dad. And so the dog went up and like bit my dad, and it drew blood, and we had to put him down. And I just like went in the corner and like cried because I was like 12, and it sucked.
And then like, you know, she was getting really sick, and then she passed away, and then I was like really sad because like after I started loving my grandma and I started getting more mature and more better as a person and getting more older, you know, she noticed that I got more mature, and I started trying to be like, you know, I try to be more positive about it. I try not to cry that much, but that was the most devastating thing because I love my grandma the most. She like the best thing in my life. I love her the most. I lost her, so you know, time to time I start trying to be more positive and leave out all the negative energy because life is too short.
And then a week after, once I just finally moved on and just like count my losses, he all of a sudden calls me and I was like, hey, I finally I just want to speak to you about why I left. And I was like, oh, okay, why did you leave? And he was like, so I slept with 3 women and I just couldn't handle it. I didn't know how to tell you that I was cheating on you. So I just didn't want to break your heart. I wanted to just break up. I hung up on him and blocked him on every social media. I just like blocked him instantly. I just couldn't. Like, it was just like the weakest thing he could ever do. Like, I have held 0 secrets against him. I was always open with him, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, I slept with 3 women while you were here faithful to me.
My brain just spiraled out of control. I became really depressed. I stopped talking to people. I didn't have any emotions. I started heavily drinking. It was pretty bad. I was in a bad place. Like I didn't know what to do. It took me about 10 months to get better from that.
I feel sorry for you.
No need to feel sorry. Everybody's got their own things. What I go through, maybe not as much as somebody else, but what somebody else goes through, I may not find it as harsh. It's all based on the person and how their brains work and how they're wired.
Kind of raised and conditioned in the way to feel like whenever somebody passes or something bad happens, I'll just make it work.
Realizing my ex didn't love me anymore?
Oh, my girlfriend of a year and a half just left me not even 2 weeks ago, so.
Being friend-zoned by my crush, man.
Not getting invited to places, that's kind of a bummer all the time. If you're like, whenever you're friends, this happens sometimes. Whenever I'm on Snapchat and I'm looking through my stories and I see all a few of my friends hanging out, I'm kind of like, yo, why didn't you invite me? And they're like, oh, you should have come. And I was like, you didn't invite me. That's not fun.
And it actually really hurt for like quite a while after that. Then I went back to the dating scene and like finally I'm actually with someone that I'm actually happy with. And my ex, well, I guess the heartbreaking thing about it is like, as much as I want to be his friend again, he completely broke whatever trust I had in him. And then the last thing I ended up knowing is that he actually has cancer now. It was horrifying to hear. Like, I didn't want to really give him my real feeling about when he told me. The last time where we talked, he was like, oh, by the way, I have cancer and I just want to know if you forgive me. And I just couldn't be honest with him. I said, yeah, I forgive you. But in reality, I just couldn't. There was that deep hurt and pain that he left me through. But he was also going through something that might just kill him and take him away from me, you know? Like, he was still my best friend, but Jesus Christ, he really hurt me emotionally and made me question my own self-value for like months.
Feeling sorry for me, I'm not saying that I don't appreciate it. I don't like people just coming up to me and saying, oh, that happened to you, I'm so sorry. Like, everybody goes through that's life. Life sucks. But it's being able to come back from it with more knowledge, better experience, knowing how in the future, if something like that happens, you know how to deal with it better, so you're not just completely blindsided by it. It's being able to bounce back from that.
Oh man, watching you rely on April No, I don't know. Probably relatives passing away. That's probably the most heartbreaking in my that I've.
The most heartbreaking thing has to be when my oldest dog died. His name was Blackie. Well, he didn't die, he was poisoned. He's dead? So, well, some selfish ass neighbor decided to frickin' poison the heck out of him because he was so protective over me and my sister. They were just selfless and decided that the dog didn't need to exist. They were very, very mean and threw rocks at him, and I'm not sure how to feel about that.
Most heartbreaking thing, I guess, seeing my dad in the hospital. That's fucked me up for a little bit. He's like doing okay now, but he's not, great. He has a lot of complication with his diabetes. He's been like fainting and falling like in public and like hitting his head and like getting like concussions, and he's just not getting any better. He's losing feelings in his hands and his legs, so he can't move that well. I don't think that kind of stuff gets better, but I just hope that he gets in better spirits and, the fainting stops.
Yeah, like that's one thing that I ended up learning throughout my whole life. Don't date your best friend. I mean, he was a sweet guy and he cared for me, but he went behind my back with 3 other women. To this day, do not know who they are, or if they were even close friends of mine, or anything like that. Especially during the heartbreak, I think he broke up with me in the worst time ever, because during that time, it was like when I really started getting like bullying threats, like actual cyberbullying stuff, like people getting onto my phone number and like sending me extremely disturbing messages. It became more heartbreaking because he always said like, oh, I'll have your back no matter what, and then boop.
I know this is kind of cheesy, but honestly, I understand when people will come up to you and tell you, go talk to somebody, like we're always here to talk to you. If you need help, we're here for you. That's because those people actually are there to help you. For the longest time, I would push people away or just shut myself off. But once I actually started talking to people about my problems, those that I trusted wholeheartedly, it took me a while to get to that point. Years. But whenever you can actually get to that point, it helps out so much, because everything that you've had on your shoulders, and it feels like it disappears. It's all still there, but it disappears, mainly because you're talking about everything you've had going on. You're working out all of the issues while also talking to somebody who may have more life experience than you would expect. They may have gone through some of the similar things that you have. They may not have, but some people are a lot better at giving advice than they are at taking it.
When I came to the school, I was I came under a scholarship, right? It was a different experience. I was with like people that I wasn't really with people I wasn't really that accustomed to. And like there was this one girl that I like really I liked her. And she was always kind of like there. Hello. And she was always kind of like there for me when like nobody else was. So I was like, oh, like I like this girl. And that would go on for like 2 years of me just straight simping. But like I was always really kind, and we always went and hung out places. And she was like my like one big friend.
It's probably when my dad left. That's probably that. But other than that, nothing really. No, it's been 5 years since what happened. He didn't say nothing. My mom just said that he just went away because of a business trip. Like, and it wasn't until 2 years later that I found out. I don't know. Bro, this is getting too emotional, bro. I'm gonna stop this shit, man. So I'm gonna just bother the other people now.